In the waning light of a chilly Los Angeles evening, a scene unfolded that would forever alter the course of a young man's heart. Barron Trump, known to the world as the youngest son of a prominent American family, had long been a silent observer of life's myriad lessons. Yet on this fateful night, as he sat quietly in his car overlooking a bustling city street, an image that defied his sheltered expectations seized his attention, a sight so jarring it made time itself seem to pause. As Barron's gaze drifted through the blurred windows of his vehicle, he witnessed a stark tableau of urban despair. Amid a sea of hurried strangers and indifferent passers-by, a solitary figure caught his eye. Huddled beneath the worn overhang of a dilapidated building, the figure was cloaked in tattered garments, his silver hair disheveled and his body frail against the harsh bite of the cold. Yet it was not merely the ragged appearance that stirred Barron's soul, it was the unmistakable look in the man's eyes, a deep, poignant sorrow that belied his current state. In that suspended moment, memories flooded Barron's mind like a tidal wave. The frail figure was none other than Mr. Richardson, the teacher who had once graced the front of a classroom with wisdom and gentle authority. Long ago, Mr. Richardson had ignited in his students a passion for learning and a sense of dignity that transcended mere academic lessons. He had taught them that while money, status, and material possessions could vanish, the essence of one's character, the inalienable dignity of the human spirit, remained untouched. Yet here, on a cold sidewalk in a forgotten corner of the city, the man who had once inspired so many now lay diminished, stripped of the very essence he had once so proudly embodied. Barron's heart clenched as he observed the scene unfolding outside. The vibrant streets of Los Angeles gave way in this neighborhood to an environment marred by neglect, walls adorned with peeling graffiti, cracked sidewalks lined with makeshift tents, and the ghostly remnants of a once thriving community now abandoned to winter's chill. The stark contrast between the city's glittering promise and the raw, unfiltered reality of human suffering was laid bare before him. This was no abstract statistic or distant news report. It was the unvarnished truth of lives unraveling in real time. Overwhelmed by an urgent mixture of grief and resolve, Barron felt an inexplicable pull to act. Though the warmth of his car's interior offered temporary refuge from the biting cold, his soul could not remain insulated from the sight of his former mentor reduced to such despair. The memories of Mr. Richardson's classroom, the sound of his steady, encouraging voice, the way his eyes lit up when discussing literature and the power of inquiry, the gentle lessons on perseverance and dignity rose within Barron like a beacon. It was as if the teacher's spirit, though marred by present suffering, was calling out for recognition and help. In a moment of decision that would irreversibly alter both their lives, Barron commanded his driver to halt the car, ignoring the driver's cautious protests about safety in an unfamiliar, rundown area. Barron's determination eclipsed all fear and hesitation. He leaped from the vehicle into the frigid night, his footsteps crunching on the cold pavement as he approached the figure beneath the crumbling awning. The scene that met him was one of heart-wrenching vulnerability. Mr. Richardson sat curled up against the worn exterior of an old building, clutching a threadbare blanket that did little to shield him from the unforgiving chill. His frail frame and hollow, trembling hands painted a picture of a man beaten by fate, a man whose eyes, despite their weariness, still held a glimmer of the noble soul Barron once knew. In that silent, heavy moment, as the wind whispered mournfully around them and the city's neon glow struggled against the darkness, Barron felt the full weight of his responsibility. Here was a man who had given so much to nurture the minds and hearts of countless students, now abandoned by a society that had forgotten the value of its caretakers. With every beat of his heart, Barron resolved that he would not allow this night of despair to pass without intervention. Though he could not erase the years of hardship or mend a broken past in a single act, he could offer a lifeline, a promise that the dignity Mr. Richardson had once instilled in him would be honored and restored. Thus began a journey of compassion and redemption. As Barron knelt beside his former teacher, the cold air mingled with the warmth of a newfound resolve. In that poignant silence, with the city's relentless clamor muted by the gravity of human loss, the seeds of transformation were sown. What began as a solitary act of kindness on a desolate Los Angeles street would soon unfold into a profound odyssey, one that would test the limits of empathy, redefine the meaning of legacy, and ultimately restore the dignity of a man once forgotten. Under the dim glow of streetlights as the cold night air wrapped around them like a shroud, Barron knelt beside the frail figure of Mr. Richardson. In that quiet and solemn moment, the layers of time and suffering began to unfold. The once proud educator, whose eyes had once sparkled with a passion for learning and a determination to nurture young minds, now bore the unmistakable marks of years spent adrift in hardship. His body, weakened by a relentless struggle against the elements and life's harsh twists of fate, seemed almost to melt into the desolation of the concrete pavement. Within the depths of Mr. Richardson's gaze, Barron perceived an ocean of sorrow and regret, a history that stretched far beyond the ragged blanket and the tattered clothes that barely shielded him from the chill. The memories of a vibrant past filled with the echoes of classroom lessons and the gentle cadence of inspiring lectures were now intermingled with an overwhelming narrative of loss. There was an unspoken testament to the battles fought against a relentless illness that had taken hold, an aggressive cancer that had not only ravaged his body but also stripped away the means to afford the care he so desperately needed. The relentless burden of mounting medical bills had forced him into a situation where every penny mattered, and ultimately his financial security had evaporated into the cold night. In this unyielding struggle, Mr. Richardson's life had unraveled further when a series of tragic events compounded his suffering. Once he had been supported by the warmth of a devoted partner, a woman whose unwavering presence had been his anchor in turbulent times. Her sudden departure from this world, taken in a senseless accident as she hurried to secure his medication, had shattered his last remnants of hope. That loss had not only robbed him of a beloved companion, but had also severed the final lifeline that might have helped him battle the ceaseless tide of despair. The grief, like a slow poison, seeped into every corner of his being, leaving behind a trail of abandonment and a profound sense of invisibility in a society that had once celebrated his every achievement. As Barron listened, in the silence that stretched between them, the teacher's memories poured forth like a silent monologue etched in the lines on his face. Each wrinkle and every trembling gesture told a story of missed opportunities and failed promises. A tale of a man who had once dedicated his life to uplifting others, only to be cast aside when he himself became a burden. The teacher's inner turmoil was not born solely of physical deprivation, but was compounded by the crushing loneliness of being forgotten, the abandonment by those who had once promised to care, who had pledged support in times of need, resonated deeply with Barron. It was a betrayal of trust that cut more deeply than the harshest winter wind, leaving behind a void that seemed impossible to fill. In that silent moment of shared humanity, Barron's heart ached with the realization that Mr. Richardson's suffering was not merely a personal tragedy, it was emblematic of a larger crisis of neglect and indifference that plagued many who had once contributed so much to society. The despair of a man who had given so much of himself to educate and inspire now stood as a stark reminder of the fragility of dignity in a world where compassion was too often in short supply. Though the night was cold and the city's chaos raged silently around them, a powerful determination began to take root within Barron. The scene before him was not merely one of isolated hardship, but a call to action. It was a summons to restore the dignity of a once illustrious teacher, and in doing so, reaffirm the values that Mr. Richardson had instilled in him during his formative years. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, yet the weight of this unspoken responsibility pressed upon him with undeniable urgency. Without the need for spoken words, Barron resolved that he would not let this night pass in vain. He would become the lifeline for the man who had, in his own quiet way, shaped the course of his life. His mind raced with thoughts of how a single act of kindness, when delivered with genuine care and determination, could become the catalyst for an entirely new beginning. The determination to break the cycle of neglect was now etched in his every thought, a promise that he would not abandon Mr. Richardson to the merciless indifference of the streets. As the bitter wind continued to howl and the night deepened, Barron gently extended his hand toward his former mentor. In that quiet, fragile touch, there was a silent vow, a promise to help rebuild what had been lost, to restore not only shelter and warmth, but also a sense of identity and purpose that the relentless cruelty of fate had nearly erased. This was the moment when the burden of the past, the cumulative weight of loss and despair, met the unyielding resolve of a young man determined to make a difference. Thus, amid the stark contrasts of a city that held both opulent promise and abject despair, the seeds of transformation were sown. The journey to reclaim Mr. Richardson's legacy was about to begin, a journey that would weave together the threads of compassion, resilience, and hope into a tapestry that promised a rebirth from the ashes of neglect. And so, beneath the indifferent gaze of a sprawling metropolis, a new chapter unfolded, one where the power of a single act of empathy would set in motion a chain of events destined to restore a lost dignity and redefine what it meant to truly care. In the silent aftermath of that fateful encounter on the frigid Los Angeles sidewalk, a profound journey of restoration and transformation began to unfold. With the first tentative gesture of acceptance between teacher and student, the weight of years of neglect and abandonment started to lift. Guided by an unwavering resolve and a deep sense of responsibility, Barron set in motion a series of actions that would come to redefine the life of Mr. Richardson, and in turn, the meaning of dignity and hope. Without delay, Barron led his former teacher away from the harsh, unforgiving streets. As they stepped into the warmth of his waiting car, the contrast between the bitter cold outside and the gentle hum of the car's interior underscored the promise of renewal. Every detail of that journey was etched in Barron's mind, the trembling hands still clutching a tattered blanket, the haunted eyes that once sparkled with the light of a passionate educator now dimmed by suffering, and the quiet determination that had drawn him to act when so many would have turned away. Once inside the car, the drive became a silent pilgrimage from despair toward hope. The cityscape shifted from the neglected corners of Skid Row, with its faded storefronts, graffiti-laden walls, and makeshift shelters, to neighborhoods touched by a gentler glow, where even a modest hotel could offer solace from the storm of life. Barron's thoughts, however, remained with Mr. Richardson, whose inner pain and vulnerability he had witnessed so intimately. In every passing streetlight and every shadowed alley, Barron felt both the urgency and the promise of what might be restored with even the smallest acts of compassion. At the hotel, a sanctuary of warmth in stark contrast to the cold urban wilderness, Barron wasted no time. He moved with purpose through the lobby, his actions decisive and imbued with an air of inherited authority. The luxury of the space, with its polished floors and gentle lighting, was not lost on Mr. Richardson, who had known only the relentless hardships of life on the streets. Yet it was in this new environment that the seeds of transformation began to sprout. Within the confines of a modest but inviting hotel suite, Mr. Richardson encountered the simple but profound comforts of a warm bed, a hot shower, and clean clothes, basic necessities that had long been out of reach. As Mr. Richardson slowly acclimated to his temporary refuge, a sense of cautious wonder began to emerge in his eyes. The room, furnished with crisp linens and softly humming appliances, was a world away from the harshness he had endured for so many years. In the quiet moments that followed, as he sat on the edge of a freshly made bed or listened to the steady murmur of the heating system, he found himself remembering the dignity that had once defined him. It was a dignity instilled in him through years of teaching, a legacy of nurturing young minds, and fostering a love for learning that had been the cornerstone of his identity. Barron, too, felt a profound stirring within him. The promise he had made to his teacher to never let him be forgotten, to help him reclaim a life of meaning, grew stronger with every heartbeat. Recognizing that a single night of shelter could not heal the deep wounds inflicted by years of abandonment, he immediately set about mobilizing the resources at his disposal. With quiet determination, Barron made a series of phone calls that would chart the course of Mr. Richardson's renewed life. The first call was to a trusted family physician, a man known for his compassionate expertise and commitment to care. In a conversation marked by urgency and genuine concern, arrangements were swiftly made for a comprehensive medical checkup. The examination, as it turned out, revealed the toll that years on the streets had taken: malnutrition, exposure to harsh elements, and the lingering effects of untreated illness. Yet amidst these challenges, the doctor assured them that with proper care, a regimen of vitamins, nutritious food, and regular follow-ups, Mr. Richardson's health could be restored. Not stopping there, Barron reached out to a longtime family friend who was a lawyer specializing in helping those who had been rendered invisible by the system. In a series of determined exchanges, the lawyer agreed to assist in restoring Mr. Richardson's legal identity, an essential step for someone who had lost everything. The process, which often stretched out over months, was expedited through the influence and persistence that Barron brought to bear. Within a short period, Mr. Richardson held in his trembling hands a newly issued issued identification card. It was far more than a mere document. It was tangible proof that he was recognized, that he existed in a world that had all too often chosen to ignore him. As the days passed, a new rhythm began to emerge in Mr. Richardson's life. With his identity restored and his physical health on a hopeful trajectory, attention turned to the deeper, long-neglected need for purpose. It was in this spirit that Barron arranged for Mr. Richardson to visit a local community center, a modest but vibrant hub of learning and growth that served underprivileged children. The center, with its faded yet inspiring chalkboard and rows of worn wooden desks, was a place where education was not a luxury but a lifeline. Here the echoes of Mr. Richardson's past glories resonated once again. Stepping into the community center, Mr. Richardson was greeted by an atmosphere charged with a quiet yet palpable hope. The room, filled with the eager, tentative faces of children hungry for knowledge, became the stage upon which he would rediscover his long-forgotten purpose. With each carefully measured step, the teacher's hesitancy began to give way to a rekindling of his passion for instructing and inspiring. The children, many of whom had never known the guidance of a dedicated educator, listened with rapt attention as Mr. Richardson, with the measured cadence of someone reclaiming his identity, began to share the timeless lessons of literature, history, and life itself. In that humble classroom, far removed from the glitzy corridors of elite institutions, the true essence of teaching re-emerged. Mr. Richardson's voice, though softer and tinged with the sorrow of past hardships, carried an unmistakable warmth and authority. His eyes, once dulled by years of suffering, began to shine with the spark of a purpose reawakened. Every word he spoke seemed to mend a piece of the shattered dignity that had haunted him for so long, while the children's rapt expressions testified to the profound impact of his renewed presence. Throughout this process, Barron remained a steadfast pillar of support. His role extended beyond that of a benefactor. He became a guardian of hope, ensuring that the teacher's journey from the shadows was nurtured every step of the way, whether by facilitating appointments, coordinating with community leaders, or simply offering a comforting presence. Barron's actions were imbued with the conviction that no one should be left to suffer in silence. His dedication was a quiet testament to the power of empathy, a belief that a single act of genuine kindness could ripple out to transform lives. As Mr. Richardson settled into his new routine, the changes were gradual yet profound. His interactions with the children, the warmth of regular meals, the consistent care provided by the doctor, and the legal acknowledgement of his existence collectively wove together a tapestry of healing. More than the physical comforts, it was the reclamation of identity and purpose that struck at the very heart of his being. With each passing day, the teacher rediscovered fragments of the passion he had once embodied, gradually piecing together a future that, while different from his past, held the promise of renewal. In the quiet hours of one crisp December morning, as sunlight filtered softly through the hotel window and danced upon the simple furnishings of the suite, Mr. Richardson sat quietly, his eyes reflecting both relief and a tentative hope. The night of shelter and care had been a turning point, a moment when the long-forgotten teacher dared to believe that his life could hold meaning once more. It was a silent rebirth, a new beginning heralded not by grand gestures or eloquent speeches, but by the everyday acts of kindness and the steadfast commitment of a young man who refused to let the embers of dignity be extinguished. Thus, in the midst of a city often defined by its glimmering promises and its harsh inequities, a story of reclamation and resilience was born. Mr. Richardson, the teacher who had once ignited countless minds, was slowly finding his way back from the precipice of despair. And through it all, Barron's unwavering determination served as a reminder that even in the coldest, darkest moments, the light of compassion can spark a new dawn of hope. In the days that followed that life-altering December morning, a profound transformation began to reshape not only Mr. Richardson's existence, but also the spirit of the community around him. The once-forgotten teacher, whose life had been reduced to the shadows of Skid Row, now found himself embraced by an environment that nurtured hope and the promise of renewal. His days began with the gentle light of dawn filtering through the curtains of a modest suite, a stark contrast to the cold darkness he had known for so long. Every morning, as Mr. Richardson awoke in a bed that symbolized more than just rest, a bed that now carried the promise of a second chance, he would sit quietly by the window, watching the world outside stir into life. In that moment of reflection, the memories of a once vibrant classroom, where his lessons filled eager young minds, intermingled with the new reality that awaited him. The experience of a warm shower, the feel of clean clothes, and even the aroma of freshly prepared breakfast served as constant reminders that life could be tender, that comfort could be found even after years of relentless suffering. Throughout the day, Mr. Richardson began to reclaim the facets of his identity that had been eroded by neglect and loss. With the help of Barron's unwavering support, he attended all his medical appointments, where careful examinations and consistent care slowly began to mend the physical toll of his long struggle. The compassionate words of the doctor, combined with the regularity of life's newfound rhythm, contributed to a steady restoration of health that offered a glimmer of long-awaited stability. Yet, the restoration of health was only the first step in a much larger journey. The process of rebuilding his life extended far beyond physical well-being. It delved into the realms of legal recognition, emotional healing, and the rekindling of a passion that had once defined him. With the assistance of a dedicated lawyer, one who had worked tirelessly to restore his legal identity, Mr. Richardson was presented with a fresh document that validated his existence. That small official card was more than proof of identity. It was a symbol of his reintegration into a society that had all too often cast him aside. As the days turned into weeks, Barron continued to be the steadfast pillar on which Mr. Richardson could lean. Together, they navigated the labyrinth of bureaucratic challenges, with every successful step reinforcing the teacher's faith in the possibility of change. Beyond legal and medical victories, a deeper transformation began to take root. Mr. Richardson, once overwhelmed by the crushing weight of despair and isolation, gradually found the courage to embrace his former passion, teaching. In a modest community center that served underprivileged children, the familiar scent of chalk dust and the gentle hum of youthful curiosity provided the perfect backdrop for Mr. Richardson's return to the classroom. The building, though modest and time-worn, pulsed with a raw, unfiltered hope that resonated deeply with him. Here in a room filled with rows of simple wooden desks and a faded blackboard, the teacher rediscovered the joy of imparting knowledge. His presence, marked by a quiet authority and a renewed sense of purpose, was a salve for not only his own wounded soul, but also for the young hearts gathered before him. Within that classroom, Mr. Richardson's lessons transcended the boundaries of traditional subjects. They became meditations on life, reflections on resilience, and exercises in reclaiming one's inherent worth. Every lesson was delivered with the understanding that the children before him had also experienced the sting of neglect and the burden of invisibility. His soft, steady voice carried stories of perseverance, tales of hardship transformed into hope through the simple, unwavering belief that every person, regardless of their past, deserved a chance at renewal. The transformation was visible in the eyes of the students, who in their innocence absorbed every word with rapt attention. Their tentative smiles, the spark of curiosity in their eyes, and the subtle shift in their demeanor signaled a profound truth. In that classroom, Mr. Richardson was not merely teaching them how to read or write. He was inspiring them to believe in their own worth, to understand that dignity was not the privilege of the few, but the birthright of every human being. Meanwhile, Barron, ever the quiet guardian, orchestrated further acts of kindness and support to ensure that Mr. Richardson's renewed life was not confined to a single day of shelter and momentary comfort. He coordinated with community leaders to set up regular tutoring sessions and educational programs, envisioning a future where the teacher's wisdom would reach far beyond the boundaries of one modest center. With each phone call and every carefully arranged meeting, Barron wove a network of support that extended to other individuals who had been cast aside by society. His belief in the transformative power of one compassionate act grew with every success, reinforcing the idea that even the smallest gesture could ripple out to effect monumental change. As Mr. Richardson settled into this reimagined life, the impact on the broader community became evident. Neighbors, once indifferent to the plight of the homeless and forgotten, began to take notice. Local businesses, inspired by the narrative of a man reclaiming his dignity, started initiatives to support those in need. Volunteers came forward, offering time, resources, and a listening ear. The story of Mr. Richardson spread quietly at first, a whisper of hope in the vast expanse of urban hardship, and then gradually grew into a symbol of resilience, a reminder that the spirit of education and compassion could triumph over the most daunting adversity. In the quiet hours of the evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city settled into a reflective calm, Mr. Richardson would often be found in quiet contemplation. Sitting at a small table near a window in the community center, he would review lesson plans with a determined focus, his thoughts sometimes drifting to the painful memories of his past. Yet in those moments of solitude, he also acknowledged the profound journey he had undertaken, a journey from the depths of despair to the threshold of a renewed purpose. Every scar, every tear was now a part of a larger tapestry of redemption, woven together by the unyielding threads of hope, dignity, and relentless human spirit. For Barron, the process was equally transformative. Witnessing the revival of his former teacher ignited in him a deeper understanding of the true essence of responsibility and compassion. It was a silent affirmation that the legacy of one's character was not measured solely by the accolades or the material wealth one accumulated, but by the ability to uplift others in their darkest moments. In his own quiet way, Barron found a path that was as much about healing as it was about leading, a journey that transcended the trappings of privilege to embrace the universal truths of empathy, resilience, and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. As the seasons began to change, and the once bitter chill of winter gave way to the gentler breezes of early spring, the transformation that had begun on a cold Los Angeles night blossomed into a living testament to the power of human kindness. Mr. Richardson's new routine became a beacon of light, a daily affirmation that no one was beyond redemption, that every life, no matter how deeply scarred by neglect, could be rebuilt with the support of a compassionate community. In the gentle unfolding of these days, the city itself seemed to exhale, releasing years of pent-up indifference as the quiet revolution of kindness took root. The story of a teacher reclaimed and a promise fulfilled became a rallying cry for others to look beyond the surface and see the inherent worth in every human soul. And as the narrative spread, it served as a powerful reminder that the journey toward restoring dignity was a collective one. Each act of compassion, each moment of genuine care had the power to transform not just an individual life, but to reshape the very fabric of society. Thus, in a world where shadows of despair had long held sway, a new dawn emerged. A dawn defined not by the absence of hardship, but by the enduring strength of hope and the unwavering commitment to rebuild what was once thought lost. And in that quiet, persistent light, Mr. Richardson and those whose lives he touched discovered that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, the human spirit, when nourished by kindness and guided by purpose, could rise again stronger than ever before. In the weeks that followed the transformative days at the community center, a quiet revolution began to bloom around Mr. Richardson's renewed life. The transformation was not instantaneous. It was a slow, deliberate process that wove together moments of healing, rediscovery, and the steady reawakening of a long-dormant passion. Every morning, as soft light spilled through modest windows, Mr. Richardson emerged from the remnants of a once-forgotten life and stepped into a future that promised dignity and purpose. His daily routine was no longer defined by the relentless struggle of survival, but by the gentle rhythm of restoration. Each day, Mr. Richardson attended his medical appointments with a sense of cautious optimism. The doctor's kind reassurances and carefully prescribed treatments gradually mended the physical toll that years of hardship had wrought. As his health improved, so too did his inner strength. The simple act of consuming a nutritious meal or taking a short walk in a nearby park became symbols of his growing resilience, a reminder that every small step toward recovery was a victory over the neglect that had once threatened to erase him entirely. Parallel to this quiet physical recovery was a profound legal and social restoration. With the assistance of a dedicated lawyer and the steadfast influence of Barron's unwavering support, Mr. Richardson's identity was not only reestablished but celebrated. Possessing a newly issued identification card was more than a bureaucratic formality. It was a declaration that he was seen, that he mattered, and that his existence was acknowledged by a society eager to move forward. This official recognition served as a cornerstone for all the other changes that followed, as it opened doors to services and support systems that had long been out of reach. The heart of the transformation, however, lay in the realm of purpose. In the modest community center where Mr. Richardson returned to teaching, the faded walls and time-worn wooden desks bore witness to a revival of spirit that could not be measured in material wealth. There, amidst a group of eager young minds, the teacher rediscovered the very essence of his vocation: The classroom, once an arena of academic challenges, became a sanctuary of hope. His lessons, rich with the wisdom of experience and the quiet authority of one who had faced life's harshest trials, stirred in his students an unspoken understanding of resilience and worth. The children absorbed every word as though it were a lifeline, and in their attentive silence, Mr. Richardson found his purpose rekindled. At the same time, Barron's own journey of compassion took on a broader significance. No longer was his intervention merely an isolated act of kindness. It had become the catalyst for a community-wide awakening. Barron began to extend his outreach beyond the boundaries of his own family's sphere, using his influence and resources to help other forgotten souls. He initiated partnerships with local organizations and community leaders, setting up programs that provided educational tutoring, healthcare services, and legal assistance to those living on the fringes of society. In doing so, he turned his personal act of benevolence into a sustainable movement, one that sought to restore dignity to all who had been sidelined by life's merciless circumstances. As the season shifted and the chill of winter gradually gave way to the softer embrace of spring, the landscape of the community began to change. Neighbors who had once passed indifferently by now offered small gestures of solidarity, a shared meal, a kind word, or an open door. The ripple effects of Mr. Richardson's reawakening resonated far beyond the confines of a single classroom. The community center, once a modest haven for underprivileged children, blossomed into a hub of activity and hope, where creativity and determination intertwined with the timeless lessons of compassion and perseverance. In the gentle glow of each new day, Mr. Richardson and Barron moved forward together on a path that was as uncertain as it was promising. The journey ahead was laden with challenges, bureaucratic hurdles, lingering social stigmas, and the ever-present memories of a harsh past, but it was also illuminated by the clear, unwavering light of hope. Every step taken, every life touched, contributed to a slowly expanding tapestry of restoration and renewal. And so, as the promise of tomorrow began to take shape in the hearts of those they touched, the legacy of a teacher was reclaimed and reimagined. In the interplay between personal redemption and collective healing, Barron and Mr. Richardson embodied the belief that even the smallest act of compassion could spark the grandest of transformations. Their journey, though still unfolding, stood as a testament to the enduring power of empathy, a promise that as long as there were voices willing to reach out, no soul would ever again be left to fade into the cold darkness of oblivion. In the final chapter of this long, transformative journey, the echoes of compassion and resilience that had been sown on a cold Los Angeles street finally began to converge into a powerful testament to human dignity. As spring blossomed fully into life, the renewed community around Mr. Richardson and Barron became a vibrant mosaic of restored hope, a living proof that even the deepest wounds could heal with time, care, and unwavering commitment. Every morning now began with purpose. Mr. Richardson, having reclaimed his identity and restored his health through the tireless efforts of dedicated medical professionals and community advocates, found himself once again standing at the front of a classroom. This was no ordinary classroom. It was a reclaimed sanctuary where the impoverished, the overlooked, and the forgotten gathered to learn and grow. The modest community center, with its faded chalkboard and creaking wooden desks, had transformed into a beacon of educational possibility. Here, the teacher's voice, once dulled by years of hardship, resounded with the rich timbre of experience and unyielding passion. His lessons, laced with the wisdom of his own painful journey, now offered students more than academic instruction. They offered a blueprint for rising above life's adversity and embracing one's inherent worth. Barron, whose own transformation had been sparked by that fateful encounter, had become a tireless advocate for change. His initiative had grown from a single act of kindness into an extensive network of support. He forged partnerships with local nonprofits, arranged for ongoing tutoring sessions, and helped establish healthcare and legal aid programs that reached far beyond the confines of Mr. Richardson's experience. In neighborhoods once resigned to despair, new community centers emerged, hubs where individuals of all ages could receive support, share their stories, and build the resilience necessary to reclaim their lives. The impact of these collective efforts rippled outward, inspiring not only those directly helped, but also igniting a broader conversation about the value of human dignity. Local media began to share stories of transformed lives, celebrating the resurgence of a man who had once been reduced to invisibility and the young benefactor who had refused to let indifference prevail. In quiet testimonials shared on community bulletin boards and social media, people spoke of how a small gesture, a warm meal, a steady hand in times of crisis could serve as the catalyst for monumental change. These stories, interwoven with the narrative of Mr. Richardson's remarkable return to purpose, painted a picture of hope that resonated with everyone who believed that compassion could indeed alter the course of destiny. In a symbolic moment that epitomized the movement's success, Mr. Richardson was invited to speak at a regional education summit. Standing before a gathering of educators, policymakers, and community leaders, he recounted his journey not as a tale of individual redemption, but as a testament to the collective power of community support and empathy. His words were measured yet profoundly moving. He spoke of the crushing loneliness of being forgotten, the paralyzing weight of systemic neglect, and the transformative impact of a single act of kindness that had rekindled his will to live and to teach. The audience, captivated by the raw authenticity of his message, responded with resounding applause, each clap a tribute to the belief that every life holds immeasurable worth. For Barron, witnessing Mr. Richardson's transformation had deepened his understanding of leadership and responsibility. It was no longer enough to rely on the privileges of his upbringing. He had learned that true leadership meant serving others, standing in solidarity with those whose voices had been silenced by society's indifference. With each step he took, whether coordinating with community partners, organizing health drives, or simply listening to the stories of those around him, Barron reaffirmed his commitment to ensuring that no one would be left behind. His journey had become a living legacy, a bridge connecting past lessons with a future built on compassion, empathy, and the unyielding belief in human dignity. As the sun set on a day marked by quiet triumphs and renewed purpose, Mr. Richardson and Barron stood together outside the community center, watching as the gentle glow of streetlights softened the edges of a city that had once seemed so unyielding. In that shared moment of reflection, the scars of past hardships and the promise of a reborn future merged into one undeniable truth. Every life, no matter how battered by adversity, has the capacity to shine again if only someone is willing to extend a helping hand. In that final, poignant silence, as the city hummed softly around them, the message was clear. The journey of reclamation was not a single isolated event, but a continuous process, a commitment to build a future where every person is seen, every voice is heard, and every soul is given the chance to be whole again. And as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, the legacy of compassion and resilience stood as a beacon for all who believed that change, however gradual, is both possible and inevitable. If you enjoyed this story, there's another video on screen right now. Go ahead and give it a look for an even more astonishing stories. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way you'll never miss our newest uploads.